This video is brought to you by Trojan brand fermented crab. Tastes like shit, but you'll be back in the game in 5 minutes. Hey guys, it's Chris and welcome back to SmokeScreen for another Game of Thrones Season 7 review video. Number 1, Jon met this guy right back here. And number 2, Jon is not a bastard. Anyway, let's jump right in. We open up with Bronn and Jaime. They get out of the river there at Blackwater Rush. Apparently they did go downstream a little bit, although Jaime seemed to be sinking about 20 to 30 feet. But I digress. Apparently Bronn did pull him out with all that armor on and saved his damn life. And Bronn basically tells Jaime in the end, going back to his true sellsword roots, that dragons is where our partnership ends. So of course this sets up a good reason later on for Bronn to set up the meeting between Jaime and Tyrion. We go to the aftermath of Field of Fire 2.0 and boy is it fucking horrible. And it's supposed to be horrible. It's supposed to show how bad war is, especially when you have fucking dragons. But Dany of course gives her speech to the remaining Lannister army as well as some Tarleys, and actually gives them a damn choice and says, I don't want men in chains, join me or die. So she did give him a choice. So a lot of people are saying Dany's going Mad Queen here. Yes, they definitely want to hint at that a little bit because she is the daughter of Aerys, the Mad King, but Aerys wasn't always a bad guy either. So they're going to continue this little balancing act here between her going Mad Queen a little bit with Tyrion whispering in her ear, and also maintaining her sanity where she grew up and became an abolitionist and actually saved a lot of people by doing horrible things. But the asshole Randyll Tarly decided the wrong way. After selling out Lady Olenna Tyrell, who he'd been pledged to for his entire life as far as their house being pledged to House Tyrell, he basically tells Dany she's not a legitimate queen, that she's not his queen, but ironically he decided to support Cersei, who's not a legitimate queen either. So I felt a little bad for Dickon. But I didn't really feel that bad for Randyll, although I did, I guess, just a little bit when he reached out and grabbed his son's arm right before the Drogon barbecue, and they turned to ash in like 3 fucking seconds. And then we cut to a scene with Cersei and Jaime. Jaime comes right in from the battle and basically tells Cersei, this war we cannot win. I saw what this fucking dragon can do, and she has 2 more. And of course, Cersei just wants to continue fighting in some way, and she believes she's going to die anyway. She doesn't believe Dany would give her a chance to live. But this is where Jaime actually reveals the news that Lady Olenna was the one who killed Joffrey. So she acted a little bit surprised by this and didn't believe it at first, but I do think she believes it now after Jaime explained to her why Lady Olenna did it. So that gives us a good reason down the road for her to at least have some type of dialogue with him and perhaps Dany as well in a later episode. And then we go to the scene directly behind me where Jon actually gets to meet Drogon for the first time, and this was fucking awesome. Dany flies up, and I don't believe Dany necessarily landed to scare him because he could have actually ate Jon or burned him up alive. But Dany landed a good distance away, and of course Drogon crawled towards him. But then of course they made sure to show that Drogon actually sniffed Jon, and he smelled or sensed that Valyrian blood that flows through Jon's veins as another little Targaryen tease, as I said they were going to do many times before Jon finds out his true parentage. Dany was sitting up there a little bit confused, like what the hell is going on down there? She really didn't know what to expect. Jon didn't know what the hell to expect. He was standing like, oh shit, do I back down? Do I run? What the fuck do I do? But ended up petting Drogon a lot more than Dany ever did. I mean, Drogon went straight into pet mode. I'm sure Jon could have fed treats to him right out of his hand. Dany does refer to them as children again, and I think this is going to set up another damn tragedy. Unfortunately, I don't think all 3 dragons can make it out alive of this damn story. What's really cool about this scene as well is they did have a little conversation afterward, and Dany actually brings up their parallel in the show itself, how they both want to help people and they have to do that from a position of strength, and sometimes strength is terrible. And she also asked Jon about the knife in the heart, but I believe he was about to say something when she asked about being a figure of speech, so I definitely think that'll come up in a later scene, as in kind of like show me those scars, if you know what I'm saying. And I'm sure Jon will have some fermented crab. But anyway, they get interrupted, and it is Jorah. He is fucking home and meets Jon Snow for the first time as well. This was a bit of a touching reunion. You could really see Captain Friendzone's love for Dany, and Dany really loves him back in a different kind of way, like he's kind of like Uncle Jorah. And Jon says, I got to serve with your father. He was a great man. So automatically there's some mutual respect there. I did expect Jorah to bring up Longclaw, but then again, Jon was wearing his long cloak, so he wasn't able to see the hilt of Longclaw, so I expect that conversation to come up later. But of course, poor Captain Friendzone walks up right in the middle of a budding love affair. In our next scene, we see Bran warging the Ravens to go spy on the Night King, and apparently he warged them for about 2 damn months. I mean, these birds left from Winterfell, flew all the way to Eastwatch by the sea, across the damn wall, and all the way up north somewhere in the frozen wasteland that we have no idea where the hell it was, to spy on the Night King and his minions, and that's a long trip even for a fucking raven. But of course the Night King looks up and spots them, and of course that makes Bran snap out of it. Now whether he did that on purpose because he saw what he needed to see, or the Night King looking up and sensing him somehow scared him out of that. We don't know, but it does show you that they do have this connection, which kind of reinforces my idea, and I'm sure a lot of other people's, that the Night King is related in some way to the Starks, being a proto-Stark. Anyway, after sitting there for a month straight, Bran snaps out of it in his wheelchair and immediately tells Maester Wolkan we need to send some damn ravens. So apparently they do send ravens not only to Jon at Dragonstone, but also to the Citadel. And in our next scene, a lot of time has passed because the raven has already gotten to the Citadel, and we see Archmaester Ebrose along with Sam and the other Archmaesters having a discussion, and they're talking about the raven that Bran had sent from Maester Wolkan in Winterfell. Sam overhears this, of course, and tries to make them believe that it's true, and they're all kind of making fun of things, but Ebrose kind of says it's possible, although I do think Sam could have tried to convince them a little bit harder, perhaps by throwing some damn books, breaking a fucking table, do something to make them understand it's the truth. But this pisses Sam off, and later on he would leave the Citadel, but right before he left the room there were a couple of interesting references here, and one of those was a tale about the drowned god destroying Aegon the Conqueror, and I think that's a possible reference to Euron in the current story. There was no issue in history to my knowledge about the drowned god and Aegon the Conqueror, Dany's actual ancestor, so I think this more points to something in the future about Euron and Dany, since Dany kind of is the reincarnation of Aegon the Conqueror. There was also another very cool little reference to Jenny of Oldstone and how she's related to the Children of the Forest. This is a possibility in the books here. Now, Jenny of Oldstone, for a quick little backstory, was a friend of the Ghost of Highheart. The Ghost of Highheart is not in the show whatsoever, but in the books, the Ghost of Highheart is the one the Brotherhood Without Banners goes to get visions from her old gods, and in return she asked for a song sang to her called Jenny Song. She was very good friends with Jenny of Oldstones, and the Ghost of Highheart is the one in the books who recognizes the darkness in Arya, but Melisandre kind of took that role in the show. But apparently the Ghost of Highheart in the books was a very close friend of Jenny of Oldstones. Some people do think that she is related to the Children of the Forest, but what's interesting here is Jenny of Oldstones actually knew, in the books that is, a woods witch who prophesied that the prince that was promised would be born of the line of Aerys Targaryen and his wife Rhaella. So of course that's a direct reference to Dany as well as Jon, since they are both from the line of Aerys and Rhaella Targaryen. Then we cut over to a shot of Tyrion and Varys in the throne room at Dragonstone, and Varys is fucking getting drunk. I've never seen Varys drink wine in the show to my knowledge whatsoever, especially that much. But anyway, he has a little scroll here. This is the scroll from Bran from Winterfell, and Tyrion says, "Did you read it?" And he says, "No, of course not. This is a sealed note for the King of the North." Tyrion takes another drink and then says, "Well, what did it say?" And of course Varys responds, "Nothing good." But the point of this here was to kind of give you the idea of the Mad Queen again, because Varys is basically telling Tyrion here, you have to find a way to make her listen after the Field of Fire 2.0 where she burned up Randyll Tarly and his son. So they'll continue this for a couple more episodes, I think, about the Mad Queen versus the regular Dany we know. But ultimately I think that this will make Dany realize her true destiny is not to take over the Iron Throne because she has some blood right to it, but to help save the damn world. And of course that makes you think, what will people think of Jon, since they've all known him, especially the Northern Lords, as a good guy his entire life. Hell, they elected him king in the damn North, and once they find out he's a Targaryen, how will they feel about that then? This just continues the entire theme throughout the entire season about don't punish the children for the sins of their father. So we cut back to the war room at Dragonstone, and they painted the damn dragon table. We now see some blue on it. Apparently Jon had a little bit of blue crayon left from the cave paintings, and this is where Tyrion actually comes up with the idea of bringing the dead to Cersei to make her listen. They want to kind of end this war. They do kind of believe Jon now to some degree, although they still need to see it themselves. So Tyrion actually comes up with a plan to actually go up north and capture one of the whites, and Jon says, "Okay, let's fucking do it." Very cool callback during this scene as well when Tyrion was speaking about Cersei thinks that the White Walkers and Army of the Dead are made up fables that your wet nurses warned you about, which was a callback to season 1 when Jon was on his way to the wall and Tyrion went with him to go piss off the edge of the world. Tyrion said this exact thing to Jon, talking about Grumpkins and Snarks and telling him he's too smart to believe in that type of thing, and all the other scary things his wet nurse warned him about. And this of course also sets up the idea of Tyrion meeting with Jaime so they can show Cersei what's really going on. We head up to a really quick shot at Winterfell where Sansa is in the Great Hall with all the Lords of the North, and they're basically pissed off at Jon for wanting to stay gone even longer and head up north of the wall to prove to everyone in the realm, including Cersei, that this threat is real to go capture a White, and Sansa listens to their complaints. Now she doesn't agree with them necessarily. She says Jon thinks it's the best thing to do, but right after this meeting, Arya does confront her and say, "You did not defend Jon. You still want power. It's still in your head. The thought's there. You don't want to think it, but it's still there." And this is what I've been saying for the last, I don't know, couple years, but the point being here that even Arya herself sees that in the back of her head she's thinking, what if Jon never returns? I will be the actual queen in the North. So it is what it is, and I am on Sansa's side, but the point being here that Arya senses this as well, a character actually on the TV show. So there will be a little bit of drama here, and of course there will be a bigger divide caused by Littlefinger. And one great highlight of this scene was that Sansa brings up fucking Ghost. At least he was actually referenced, but they could have shown him again walking by. Could have been a damn small dog in the background, whatever, just a white dog walking by a hallway, whatever it needs to be. At least show fucking Ghost. It's ridiculous you have all these damn dragons, but they can't have a fucking dog walk by in the background. So then we go to King's Landing, and Davos has smuggled Tyrion in to go meet with Jaime, and while that's going on, Davos heads down to Flea Bottom to find Gendry, and yes, he fucking did. Gendry is back, and Davos even says, I figured you'd still be rowing. So you can't tell me that Dan and Dave aren't aware of all the things going on the internet, especially YouTube. Davos basically tells Gendry bad things are coming, and Gendry says, you're trying to get me out of here, aren't you? Let's go. Because he was ready to go right then and there. He grabbed his fucking warhammer in his backpack and took the hell off with Davos. He basically says he's been working out, he's been training. We didn't really know what that meant at the time, but he knew something was coming and he would recognize it when he saw it and go fight for the War for the Dawn. He has now accepted who he is. He talks about his father, and he actually has been training with a warhammer. And this warhammer is a badass looking thing, so this is going to be a very good parallel with Robert, who was a badass with a warhammer before he got old and fat. And while that was going on at the same time, Tyrion actually meets up with Jaime, and this is a very interesting scene here. You could see the love between the brothers, but also the hate. Tyrion starts talking to Jaime about father, and he's like, no, don't talk about my father. But he was explaining to Jaime that he was going to have him executed only because he was a dwarf, and he probably would have too. He did learn the truth from Lady Olenna about Joffrey that wasn't Tyrion whatsoever, so he is still mad about it, but you can see he still loves his brother. He was certainly conflicted just having the conversation with him, but he understands that what he has to do, he has to make peace with the Dragon Queen in order for his house to survive. And of course he also learns about the Walking Dead, which he would tell Cersei later. And as they leave King's Landing, we do see that Gendry has had a little bit of practice, although the Gold Cloaks wasn't really fighting back, but he takes 2 Gold Cloaks out as they come back and try to question Tyrion after Davos had bribed them with the fermented crab dip and gold. And damn, did you see that dude's face? And then we head back to King's Landing, and Cersei is talking to Qyburn in her chambers, and she says something right before Jaime walks in that makes me think she really is pregnant, because Qyburn says, I could give you something, and she said that will not be necessary. So I do think Cersei is actually pregnant here. I don't think she's just faking it, although it's certainly a possibility, but I agree with what people said in the live stream last night that I don't think she would ever have that child, although she could, but you're talking about 9 months, and time could pass very fast in the show, obviously, between scenes for that matter, but I don't think they have time to introduce another actual character, even if it's just a baby. So what I think this does in Cersei's mind is sets up the idea that this prophecy is in fact not real, because now I'm going to have 4 children as opposed to 3, and that's what Maggie the Frog had told her. So I still think it's going to be Jaime that's going to be the Valonqar. Although in the show they don't have to necessarily do that, because they did not specifically say the Valonqar part of the prophecy when she had the Maggie the Frog flashback. And she basically says something about Dany and all her enemies and how they need to fight them like their father would, and what she means is Red Wedding style. So that's telling you right there that whatever happens in the future as far as this supposed parlay or meeting about the White Walkers, that she will still try to betray everybody else, because she's fucking crazy. We head back to Dragonstone, and of course Gendry and Davos are heading into the mines where Jon is. You can hear all the mining going on in the background, and this is a very, very cool scene here. Davos is trying to tell Gendry, keep it under wraps who your father is, and he says, just remember your name is Clovis. And on a quick side note here, my buddy Preston G sent me a little link about the word Clovis, and apparently Clovis I was the first king of the Franks and actually formed the Merovingian Empire. But I thought this was great. They walk in and Gendry immediately says, the hell with that shit, my name's Gendry, I'm Robert Baratheon's son, my father and your father were best friends, yada yada yada, and Jon immediately takes to Gendry, so they set up a really cool parallel here between Ned and Robert Baratheon. Obviously they were best friends as they grew up, and they fought together in Robert's Rebellion, which of course won Robert the throne. And they actually have a couple neat callbacks here as well to season 1 episode 1, Winter is Coming, because Jon tells Gendry he met his father back at Winterfell, and Jon says you're a lot leaner, and Gendry says yeah, and you're a lot shorter. So it's very similar to the conversation that Ned had with Robert when he came to Winterfell and saw him for the first time in a long time. Gendry seems to be ready to go all in and help with this War for the Dawn thing he heard about from Davos on the way, and Davos of course says, yeah, nobody mind me, the only thing I've ever done is live to be a ripe old age. So Davos was on point this entire episode. He is the fucking comic relief now. I'm freaking loving his character. He's so damn sassy this year. So then it's time to take off and leave, and Jon says goodbye to Dany as well as Jorah and the rest of the crew as they head north to go to Eastwatch by the sea. And of course Jorah has his little moment with Dany and kisses her on the hands. Tyrion has his little moment with Jorah as well and hands him the coin that the slaver gave him back in season 5 when they actually bought Jorah and Tyrion to go to the fighting pits, how they got to see Dany in the first place. And that little goodbye that Jorah gave to Dany almost felt like a final goodbye to me. So I hope I'm wrong here, but I'm just saying. And Jon and Dany say goodbye, and he says, if I don't return, you don't have to worry about the King in the North anymore. And Dany, of course, says, I was kind of getting used to him. So, of course, they're falling in love with each other. Jon still has his poker face on, but you can see it in Dany's eyes. You can see it by her gestures and the things she says now. She's really kind of digging Jon now, to the point of worrying about him leaving. And Jon has another cool little Targaryen reference here, another fucking tease, where he says, I wish you good fortune in the wars to come. And of course, that's been said by many, many people, but specifically Sir Arthur Dayne back at the Tower of Joy, and of course that's where Jon was born. And then in a big revelation, we head back to the Citadel, and High Septon Menard has been writing this book that Gilly is now reading. I have to say, I called this a long time ago. There's a reason Gilly learned to read, and of course that was to discover that High Septon Menard, who wrote the book she is reading, had 15,782 shits.
Steps.
I'm sorry, no, that was the stairs. That was the stairs in the Citadel. But of course, in all seriousness, the big revelation here was Prince Rhaegar had an annulment to his wife and was secretly married in Dorne by this High Septon Menard. And of course, Sam was so pissed off it went right over his head. But then again, if you think about it, even if he would have recognized the name Rhaegar, as in Rhaegar Targaryen, because she did say Prince Rhaegar, Sam would have certainly been interested in what she had to say, because obviously everybody knew Rhaegar Targaryen. He was pretty infamous in his day, but he wouldn't have immediately connected that to Jon because he has no idea who Jon's parents are, just like everybody else in Westeros. So that will come up again. He did pack up all these other books and scrolls. I'm assuming that book's coming with him, but at some point I'm going to guess in season 8 in Winterfell, that will come up again, and he will realize that she just mispronounced the name Rhaegar when she said Prince Rhaegar, and that will of course help him and Bran, of course, in conjunction with each other, and I hope Howland Reed, to confirm to Jon himself that he is in fact the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and he is not a bastard. So this is going to cause a little bit of drama later on between Dany and Jon, although Jon will never want the Iron Throne. And again, a lot of people have asked me recently as well, who has the right to the Iron Throne? And that is a very sloppy thing because of feudalism. So if you think about it, Dany does have a claim to some people, but some people would consider that claim invalid. Even if Jon was found out to be who he actually is, he would have a better claim than Dany's, although again, some other people would think that to be invalid, because Robert Baratheon had the right of conquest and he took the throne from Aerys Targaryen, so the current line of succession in this period should be somebody from House Baratheon. So a lot of people think it's going to be Dany or Gendry or Jon, but the point being here that feudalism is sloppy and everybody in that time period would have a different opinion on who's the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. And of course, in the end, it's not going to matter anyway. And ultimately, he told Gilly he was tired of reading about the accomplishments of better men and got the hell up out of there. He did have Heartsbane with him as well. He stole a lot of books and scrolls, and now he's going to head to Winterfell. And speaking of Winterfell, we go back there for Arya and Littlefinger. Arya is kind of spying on Littlefinger doing her little ninja assassin thing, and this was a complete twist to me. Littlefinger was on to her the entire damn time. He goes up in his room and puts that scroll in the mattress. Arya finds it, and you expect to find something else that would damn Littlefinger, but from Arya's perspective, this note she found actually damns Sansa. So this is to undermine Arya and Sansa and pit them against each other, because this is the note that Sansa wrote to Robb back in season 1 when Cersei made her write it in her own hand, but Cersei told her exactly what to write. But of course, Arya was out of town and has no idea that Sansa was made to write that, so Sansa is now going to be confronted by Arya, where she says, look, you wrote this a long time ago to your own damn brother. You betrayed our family. So this is going to be some damn drama. So I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised. Littlefinger still has game. And then we head up to Eastwatch by the Sea. The first time we've got to see it in the actual show. It's also now on the opening credits. There is no more frozen ocean there. So that's odd that they changed that when they added Eastwatch. We have Jon, Jorah, Gendry, and Davos meeting up with Tormund, who of course is the new Night's Watch, and they're talking about the mission up north. And of course, Tormund asked, did you bring the big woman?
I've been alone with you inside my mind.
Because he is in love with some fucking Brienne. And it just so happens that they have the Hound and the Brotherhood Without Banners in a prison cell because they were headed up north as well. And of course, Tormund wouldn't know who they were, and was actually probably trying to protect them from going north of the wall, because of course the Hound did see that vision back in episode 1 where he saw a castle by the sea, which of course was Eastwatch, and the mountain shaped like an arrowhead, which of course happens to be the actual mountain where Bran saw the Night King being created in the first place. As you can see here, I had a lot of people point this out to me on social media, so a shout out to all you guys as well. So anyway, they all meet up, they realize they all have a bunch of beef with each other, but ultimately they decide they are on the same side. They're all here for a greater purpose. And Jon puts it very, very well when he says, we know we're on the same side because we're all breathing. And in our final shot, they open the damn gates and head out beyond the wall, walking again. I don't understand here why they're not taking any horses. I guess you could say this is probably too cold for horses, so they're just going to fucking walk, and you're setting yourself up for failure if you don't have a quick way to get the hell up out of there. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. I really enjoyed this episode. Again, this season's writing is on point. You're having a lot of callbacks. You have a lot of comedic relief via Davos. You have a lot of cool parallels going on that they're bringing up that you're seeing now between past seasons as well as ancient history. And of course, we're getting more Jon Targaryen revelations as we get closer to the time where they actually let him know in the show himself that he is the son of Rhaegar Targaryen. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think. As usual, thank you for all the support, especially you guys on Patreon. And a huge shout out to my executive Patreon SmokeScreen producers, Griffin, Volguy10, Lala Gig, Kissa Powell, Marc Joseph, aka The Snow in Winterfell, Marylin Bentley, JoAnna, Sean Hayes, Anonymous, Doc Holliday, Goska, HoonJive, Kieran D20, Nicki Snow, Lo Horton, Erin Habig, Ashley May, Brian Solarz, Dean Bwell, Karla Stark, John Carey, Anastasia, Jason Landers, Rhiaanon, DTizSmith, and MJW. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate the support. And to everybody out there in YouTube land, and thank you for stopping by the live stream again as well. We broke our record once again. And of course, we'll do it again next week at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time, right after the show, episode 6. Only 2 episodes to go. Damn, this season's almost over. So thanks again. Be sure to subscribe to get everything, and be sure to click that damn notification bell so you're notified when I drop a new video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.